Personally, I think if we didn't open that door to the regenerative agricultural scene, we wouldn't have been on our property here today.
The ultimate goal is a resilient environment that is healthy and diverse. Through diversity, there's strength, and with the knowledge that we now have, we can positively influence the environment and the landscape.
Firstly, I'd like to define regenerative agriculture because there's a lot of confusion about what it is. It starts with regenerating soil health. As we improve soil health, we improve plant health, we improve biodiversity. As we improve plant health, we will improve human health and animal health. And as we increase profitability and resilience within our landscapes, our communities will become more resilient and regrow. And so regenerative ag is all of those things put together, but it starts with regenerating soil health.
It's not the right thing. Years ago we started here and we said to Jamie's sister,
Righto, I'm Jamie Gordon.
And I'm Garlon Woolen.
And we're at Mount Pleasant, halfway between Bowen and Collinsville on the Bogey River. That property's 13,800 hectares, running approximately 2,500 head. The property's been in the family since 1917. I was, say, 6 or 7 years of age, early 70s, and had that memory of those years of deep grass and lots of grass. Came to 95, Garlon and I became the operators of Mount Pleasant. And so that was a question I kept asking in 95. I said, we just don't seem to grow the grass the way we used to. It just doesn't seem to respond to rainfall the way, well, it can't, it couldn't. But we've sort of, why? What's the difference? What's the difference? It still rains. We still get rain. And that was pretty good motivation to think that maybe we need to change something.
Jamie drove the search for new information because what we were doing basically was not working. We'd established that. We ended up at Resource Consulting Services door looking for ideas and answers, and from there they gave us a handful of principles and support to start to apply that. The biggest part was introducing rest. Plants need rest from being grazed.
Plants like you and I and virtually every other living thing needs to rest and recuperate. And the rest will change throughout the season depending on the growth rate of the plant. So I'm Terry McCosker. We're here at RCS headquarters in Yeppoon. I started RCS in 1985, and in 1989 we started work in what is probably now known as regenerative agriculture. But we've actually been on this pathway now for, well over 30 years. In a past life, I was very, very fortunate to be on a cattle station in the Northern Territory, and it was owned by an American company. And at the age of 28, I was given the opportunity to change it. Now, they'd been using a lot of technology like putting out fertiliser and legumes, and I found that it wasn't working. All they were doing was growing weeds, bare ground, getting all sorts of ecological problems. And the desirable perennial grasses in that landscape started to disappear. And animal performance wasn't improving, it wasn't any better. And so I employed and got ecologists to come and look at the place and various experts and so on, and said, you know, what's happening here? Why is this happening? And the answer I got was, that's just normal. 4 years later, in 1989, I met Dr. Stan Parsons, who happened to visit Australia. And he started talking about rest, which was basically unheard of in grazing systems in Australia and a lot of the world at that stage. Because the prevailing science was that you just needed continuous grazing and there was no advantage in doing anything else. So he introduced me to this concept of rest, and I thought maybe that's the answer.
So when we started to apply rest, we applied rest by putting two herds together. So instead of having cattle in two paddocks, we had all the cattle in one paddock. And that heavily used area and probably lower conditioned area had an opportunity to build a little bit of strength back into it.
Rest allows the areas and the plants that get continually selected until they die to grow and put down roots and throw out new leaves. In this country, all of the creek edges and the sweeter spots were really heavily grazed, and then of course the better plants that grew there were grazed out, and then you get a lesser quality plant. Within the same paddock, you could have severe overgrazing, yes, and then really, really underutilised patches in the same paddock.
One is declining in condition and one you're getting no production from. We're actually growing grass on these heavily utilised, very, very poor conditioned, originally areas are growing more grass than they ever did, and we're using the tops of the ridges or the parts of the paddock that were left behind and wasted hopelessly in the earlier version.
So it was a concept that we knew of, but I think just going through the RCS, Grazing Profit, and all the training that we've been through there, I guess just opened our eyes up to the fact that when grass is eaten, not all the way down to the ground, when it's touched, when you take the top of it off, move the animals on and allow that allow that grass time to recover, you get more growth and everything else moves along with it. Yeah, so we're about a 120, 130 day rotation at the moment in the non-growing seasons, and then we bring it back to about a 60-day rotation when the grasses are growing. So more often, you're moving cattle more often when the grass is growing. Just like mowing your grass at home, you mow it more when the rain's there and when it's growing, and then slow down in winter. Essentially the same concept. Get in trouble in front of the camera. Thanks. Is that your hat? Where's yours? There we go.
What did I say to you?
Turn around.
I don't know that I could ever be ready. Okay, you ready? No. Yes, let's go. Okay, you just watch, okay? Hi, I'm Tali Brownlee.
I'm Andrew Brownlee.
And this is Ella and Sierra.
Nixon and McClay.
Okay, go show them the thrash car. We run a grazing business on Lockmead, Gindi, 16 kilometres south of Emerald. So Lockmead was purchased by my grandparents in 1951 and I am one of their grandchildren and have taken over the agistment of the property. So 12 years ago we purchased our first pen of cows and calves, and from there we built our breeder numbers up. We were not set stocked and we rotated our cattle, but we had no method to our madness. And so when we changed our management after doing a grazing for profit school, the response was instantaneous. We could see a change for the better in our country pretty well within a month, and it's just gone up from there.
Well, we've put more fences in and split them up into smaller paddocks, and we just keep on moving them over like 1 or 2 days. Yeah, it's like one paddock. Time to snooze. Almost a year later, time to wake up.
When the cows poo, the dung beetles come and put them under the ground, and then it grows more grass. Because they eat the seeds.
When they dig into the ground, when they go into the poo, they dig into the ground and push the poo into the ground, and sometimes they take the seed with them,
And it grows
it grows more grass.
Regenerative agriculture for us here is being focused on diversity and allowing the environment to flourish.
I think it's leaving the country in a better position than what we
definitely
took it over.
Yeah, so that our kids can keep it moving forward and hopefully they leave it in a better spot than when they took it on.
I'm Bo North. I recently purchased the property with my fiancée Catherine. It's about 20 kilometres or 14 kilometres as the crow flies from the coastline here at Serena, Mackay area. I worked for 9 years now as an electrician, and I was able to purchase our first property with the capital, and we're looking at using regenerative agricultural practices to turn an older cane farm, which has been conventionally cropped for the last 80 odd years, back into a healthy perennial pastures, which we will run our beef operation from. Come on, Skip.
Yeah, but I think it's a good opportunity here to really be able to regenerate what is here, because it has been cultivated. Like, there's so much that we can do, and it's really exciting with that vision in mind of having a really healthy ecosystem here.
So basically we have lots of small communities along the coastline here, and they all sort of link up to create the Mackay Whitsunday area, and our property is situated at the headwaters or the catchment of Alligator Creek, which actually runs out onto the coastline here and then feeds the Coral Sea and out onto the Great Barrier Reef. So I've always lived in the area, always went fishing, so this is probably one of the main systems that I used to fish and used to hang out a lot. We loved camping. We used to go camping all the time along this beach as young kids. So our parents would drop us off down here and we'd be off to fend for ourselves and pitch our tent, and it's when you learn about tides, when you put the tent too low. And you know, I travelled away. I went to the States and Canada as well, and came back, and I'd still when we came over the range, you could smell the salt water in the air and you know you were home. So I guess regenerative agriculture, in terms of how it plays a role in my life is that it helps to protect this. It helps to protect something that I was so passionate about as a young person and still am. And it's our natural environment.
Producers that live and farm in the reef catchments play a critical role in keeping a healthy reef because everything that happens in their farms translates into the reef water quality. So that's why we need to work together with producers by implementing innovative management practices that reduce sediment runoff and at the same time maintain a high productivity and profitability for producers in their farms.
We don't want all of our soil running off the property. One is because we're losing production. We rely on that top 4 to 6 inches of soil for our production here. And also the other thing is that it's affecting people further down and obviously onto the coral sea and that sort of thing. And we understand that naturally there would be some runoff, but with our farming practices, we're wanting to limit that as much as possible, and it's only going to benefit us by keeping our topsoil on our place. So it's a win-win for the environment and I guess for our production systems.
Through the management that we've now put in place, water infiltration will increase due to less bare ground and more ground cover. So less erosion and nutrient runoff off our own landscape. So while we're increasing what we're doing here and making it more profitable and diverse for us, it also pays off for others downstream from us.
A little bit dark, but we'll get up there.
Oh, you can hear me breathing, that's embarrassing.
Right. Never been here at this time of day. This is beautiful.
Wow, look at that. So the increase in production and the cattle doing well has gone hand in hand with the increase in biological, let's say, activity. There's a few key species that are back that we didn't realise were gone. About 2 or 3 years ago, we heard a curlew back at the house, and you can drive to the coast and go to the shopping centre and there's curlews under the lights at night. Well, they were gone from here. We didn't hear them anymore, and that's such a heavy burden to bear. Things were living here, and with our management, they're gone, but to have them come back is like just incredible. So what I find really rewarding now is that we owe very little money. You know, when we were young, that was this huge weight and it seemed insurmountable. And here we are, living the dream. It is so nice. I love driving through our fat cows, and we have years where, you know, they have to use up their reserves before the rain comes a little, but livestock are happy, and our kids, we can't get rid of them. You know, they keep coming back, and a lot of days we ride around and we're joking and laughing, and life is good. But it was the land health that got us there. Getting the land, getting the water back into the ground, getting the diversity of plants back.
Yes.
Which has given us the production, which has given us the profit.
Generally, I think the attitude is starting to shift. I see the movement of regenerative agriculture, and now it's a widely adopted terminology, if you like. I believe by 2030 we will see substantial adoption, and by 2040 I think it'll be pretty much the norm. We now get people who are in the supply chains coming to us and saying, how do we link up with regenerative agriculture? Because the consumers are starting to demand that link, and we only want to buy somewhere down the track from people who are working regeneratively on their landscape. So I think that within 4 or 5 years, it won't be that you're encouraged to be regenerative, it'll be you'll be discouraged from being anything else.